Does it even matter who the Knicks coach is? I mean, they're so dysfunctional, who cares? Well, Knicks fans should care because it does matter. The Knicks are at a turning point. They've got the second most cap space to work with this offseason. They own all their first-round picks, plus some from Dallas and the Clippers. Free agents like Giannis Antetokounmpo, Paul George, and Kawhi Leonard are all watching, believe it or not. Actually, knowing the Knicks, they'll probably find some way to screw this up. They've only made the playoffs 5 times this century. They've got a 7-17 record in the postseason. The next coach will be their 6th in 6 years. Not one guy has lasted longer than 2 seasons. The Knicks clearly need stability and they need to win. In this video, we'll go through the potential hires and explain why one guy stands out above the rest. Hey, it's Casey, host of the AM Hoops YouTube channel and the AM Hoops podcast. Hit subscribe, please. Even though there are no games, we're still making 5 videos per week. Also, notification bells help a lot. The way I see it, the most important quality for a coach is being attractive to superstars. And in that way, none of the reported head coaching candidates here are perfect. The 3 rumored targets for the Knicks are current interim coach Mike Miller, ex-Nets coach Kenny Atkinson, and ex-Bulls and T-Wolves coach Tom Thibodeau. Whoever gets the job needs to empower that front office that's been reworked to use those resources to get stars. As much as we love our coaches, it's a players' league. Phil Jackson didn't win without Kobe or Jordan. Greg Popovich had Tim Duncan. Steve Kerr, Steph, Clay, KD. Stars want to play for certain guys and for a winning team. Who checks both boxes? Well, let's start with Kenny Atkinson. Reports say the Nets' old coach will get an interview here with the Knicks. I love Kenny Atkinson. The Nets have been my favorite team to watch for 2 years. Of course, he coached the Nets from basketball hell all the way to the playoffs out of like nowhere. Now, the front office had a lot to do with that. They got D'Lo from the Lakers, Spencer Dinwiddie off the scrap heap, drafted Karis LeVert, whatever. Atkinson still had a lot to do with it. I also love his story. I mean, this guy is a basketball lifer who's not a star. He grinded for years in Europe. He was an NBA assistant, kind of like Nick Nurse. Both guys are blue collar who earned their spot. Of course, Nick Nurse just won a championship. Kenny made the Nets attractive enough to get Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving over the Knicks. He's a slam dunk, right? Unfortunately, no. Kenny Atkinson was able to attract the superstar players with that culture. But then when they got there, he couldn't deal with the culture shift. He couldn't work with the superstars. Reports said before they mutually parted ways, Kenny Atkinson was just up and ready to quit. Kyrie and KD have the final word on what goes on with the Nets. If they play or don't, if they talk to the media, when it probably isn't smart. If Kenny Atkinson can't live with that, hate to say it, but he should probably be a small market coach. The NBA is a players' league, like it or not. Winning teams are star players' teams. Atkinson has shown he can't work with superstars, so he does not check the most important box for the Knicks. Next up is Mike Miller. Now, he is the current coach who stepped in after David Fizdale was let go. Miller has done so well. Reports say he will be given a job on the Knicks coaching staff even if they choose someone else. He is also a lifer, a guy who grinded to the top as an assistant and in the G League. He was able to stabilize the Knicks' chaos after that 4-18 start. And if the NBA resumes in Disney World, he will coach the Knicks if they're involved. My issue, though, with Mike Miller, he doesn't have a track record. That doesn't mean I think the Knicks should hire a star coach. That's been their issue in the past. But Miller is the other side of the spectrum. We have no idea what his strengths or weaknesses are. He's anonymous. We did talk about similarities in the grinder with Nick Nurse. First-year head coach, he went out and won a championship. But I don't think of New York and the Knicks as a first head coaching job place. It's just not. I mean, the Raptors are, and I think the Knicks agree. They will interview him as a thank you and offer him to stay on the staff, showing he did do a good job. But if I were him, I would turn it down and be a head coach somewhere else. So that leaves the only other candidate, and that is Tom Thibodeau. He is who I would pick to be the Knicks head coach. He is a defense-first guy. He made Derrick Rose an MVP, made the playoffs all 5 years as the Bulls head coach, took the Timberwolves there for the first time in 13 years. But he's got critics. They say he plays starters too many minutes, has an old school style. His players hate him. That is harsh. But Tibbs himself answered for all of that recently on ESPN.
The big thing is oftentimes there's things that are being said where there's no validity to them. They're being painted by people who have never even been around you. And then I would say to all those people, the facts are what the facts are, to look into the facts, to do your research, to look into the numbers, and to also talk to former players, the guys who have played for me. And I think if you did that, you would find what the truth is. There's certain things that I do believe in, but as we all know, our league is always changing. It never stays the same, and it never has, nor will it ever. So you have to keep adapting as time goes on, but I think the same things do win.
Okay, Tibbs, look at the numbers he says. All right, let's do it. In 2018, he led Minnesota back to the playoffs, and here are those starters' minutes. The numbers say, yeah, he does play them a lot. The starting lineup with Jeff Teague, Andrew Wiggins, Jimmy Butler, Taj Gibson, Karl Anthony Towns, all in the top 36 players for minutes played per game. No team since the 86-87 Celtics had a starting five where everyone was in the top 40. So yeah, Tibbs, we looked at the numbers. You play him a shitload. He also said talk to some of his old players. Well, The Athletic ran an anonymous player survey. One question said, which coach other than your own would you not want to play for? And Tibbs led the list. Not a great look for you, Tom. Now he would probably say, those aren't my players answering. What about the guys I actually coached? Well, Jimmy Butler famously said, this shit has to stop about playing so many minutes. What about Derrick Rose? He actually thinks different. He said, quote, I figured out that Tibbs loved me unconditionally. He's the first coach up here in the NBA that I felt like loved me unconditionally, and it wasn't about what I did for him. He hit me up for my birthday. He really cared about who I was as a person. Joakim Noah and Tom Thibodeau used to butt heads all the time, get in screaming matches on the Bulls. At the time, Noah didn't like Tibbs once in a while. Recently, though, he said this about his old coach, quote, it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you have to be demanding because it's hard to win in this league. With Tibbs, you definitely butt heads, but you don't realize what you have with him until he's not around. Our run in Chicago, I'll never forget. Some of the best times in my life. I got a lot of love for Tibbs. So not every former player of Tom Thibodeau is a big fan of Tom Thibodeau. I still think actually with Jimmy Butler, it had a lot to do also with Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns. He didn't like them and their work ethic, and he was just a mess. But you know who is the sixth coach on the guys I don't want to play for? Greg Popovich. Is he a good coach? Yeah, sometimes a guy demands a lot from his players in the heat of battle to get things done, and he gets the respect of his players afterward. And that's what we've seen with Tibbs. He also said he has to evolve in this league. But let's say he doesn't. Let's say he continues to play the starters a lot of minutes. That would actually be great for this young Knicks team. Here is the minutes breakdown for the Knicks last season. Only one guy under 25 years old got starters minutes, and that was RJ Barrett. I don't know a single Knicks fan who doesn't want to see Mitchell Robinson start more and play more. And Mitch Rob's number one trait? Defense. Tibbs loves defense. He's one of the best defensive minds ever, even though it's slacked off with the personnel in Minnesota. He would love to have Mitchell Robinson out there. Besides Robinson and Barrett, Frank Ntilikina, the only young Knick who shows promise. Well, Frank is another defense-first Knicks prospect. I think Frank would get close to starters minutes. What about the other young players? What about them? Kevin Knox, Dennis Smith Jr.? Sorry, you had your chance to prove it, and you didn't. If Tibbs played Ntilikina, Mitchell Robinson, and RJ Barrett with a mix of vets, whoever they end up being, that would be good for winning and for the Knicks' development. A defense-first team is a winning style, too. Tibbs got the Bulls to 5 playoffs despite not having Derrick Rose for chunks. His Bulls teams were top 10 in defensive rating 4 of 5 years. He frequently has top 10 offenses, too. Teams like San Antonio, the Warriors, the Bucks, all defense first. It is a hallmark of a winning culture. If this team wins and they have a respected head coach, things will change at MSG. Look, this is a big hire for the Knicks. I mean, we talked about the free agents potentially who are watching. There are also trade target guys who are watching too, like a Chris Paul who could turn around the culture there. I think Tibbs, although not perfect, is the right hire right now for a turning point in Knicks history. Support AM Hoops and click subscribe. Don't miss a daily NBA video.